I was more scared of, and this is what I told my husband. I said, 20 years from now, I don't want you to look at me and resent me.
That's right. That's such an important point.
I said, because I
Resentment
don't
later.
want you, I said, I know that you love me and
Yeah,
that you want to spend your life with me, but I also don't want to be a source of resentment 20 years from now. When
that's
you look
right.
back over your life and say, I never got to have a child of my own because I
Mm.
chose to love her, you know.
And you don't want
So
to carry that either. You
I don't
don't
want to carry
want
that.
to, yeah,
Did not want to carry. I would rather let him go
yeah.
than carry that.
This is Eclipse Wellbeing Podcast, and I'm your host, Chimaka. This is where we talk about women's health and we talk about the digital system supporting women's health. Today, I'm speaking to the lovely Quisha Umemba. We spoke about so much from secondary infertility to egg donations to marriage and love. It was such a pleasant conversation, and I can't wait for you to dive in. So let's dive in. I'm really looking forward to this one. By the way, I have been looking forward to having this conversation with you. But
Absolutely.
for listeners meeting you for the first time, how do you usually introduce yourself professionally and personally?
Personally, I just call me Quisha. So it's Quisha, not Keisha, which
Oh,
is
it's
often
Quisha.
mistaken
God,
for it's
oh,
Quisha. Uh-huh.
Quisha. Okay.
Yeah, and I am a mom. I am a boy mom of three boys. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I am a business owner. So I'm the CEO of Umemba Health, which is a workforce development agency, primarily health related, public health related workforce development. But I'm also a registered nurse. I've been a nurse for right at about 22 years. What? Wait a minute. My oldest is 23. 20 years. I am, of course, an entrepreneur. I'm an author. I am so many things. I wear so many hats like so many women. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
juggle all the things, but I love it. It's a full life and I love it.
that's awesome. No one says anybody has to be one thing.
That's it.
Yeah, so you're juggling quite a lot. I know you're based in Dallas,
Yes,
but
yes.
yeah, but the story you're going to share today spans across the US, Nigeria, and God knows where else. So, how have these cross-continental experiences shaped how you see health and care?
Oh, that's a great question.
Mm.
So I would say Texas, I'd say Mexico, and I would say Nigeria are kind of the three places when we talk about getting into this story a little bit.
Yeah.
And man, healthcare across all three of those is very different. And there are good and bad in all of those. And I would say the thing that has shaped me the most is as a registered nurse, I had the belief that our healthcare in the US was superior.
Hmm.
And certainly it is superior to care in Nigeria. I'm not gonna say that it's not. But after the experience that I had in Mexico, and of course I can only not all of Mexico, right? I was in Tijuana for my procedure, but it really opened up my eyes to what could be done for a lot less money.
Hmm.
And so I can say it was my first time participating in medical tourism. It will not be my last time participating in medical tourism, and we can get into that a little bit more as the conversation unfolds.
Oh, that's a good one, actually. That's a really good topic. I'm
Yeah.
noting that down here.
So
Yeah.
you want me to keep
Okay.
going or?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, so let's get into the juicy part of the story.
Mhm.
When did you first realize that your fertility journey might not be straightforward?
Yeah. So I don't know if in the introduction you're going to tell them everything. So I'll just lay out that I have a 23-year-old and I have a 15-year-old, and then I remarried, and my husband doesn't have children, and he's the first son. He's Nigerian, if you didn't notice by my last name, um, which is Umemba. And
I
so
did say that to you the first time that I
yeah,
saw
like
your name. I was like, okay, her first name, she's definitely Black American, but her last name, It's definitely Nigerian and Igbo, and
Yeah.
I'm Igbo as well. So I was like,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
But of
people say
course,
that
it's
all the
such a
time. They're
simple
like, no, that first
explanation.
name is
Yeah.
definitely Black American.
Yeah.
So anyway, so married my husband, and he, at the time, my tubes were tied. I tied my tubes. I was not going to have any more children. It was not something I was interested in doing. Then, of course, God laughs at you when he hears your plans, right?
And he
And
knew
so
about this. I mean, you were both okay with this.
we
And
were, well, he knew when we got married that my tubes were tied, but we have this like quote unquote marriage contract. Like it's not official, but it's just some things that we stated that I wanted and he wanted. And so he said, I just want one. I just want one. And so I knew that tubal reversal was in my future when we got married. So
got it.
fast forward 4 years into our marriage, I'm like, and he's like, okay, you're getting older, like you're getting close to 40, and I'm using every excuse in the book to put it off because as according to my therapist, I told my therapist, I said, I just assumed he would change his mind at some point and
He'll
be like,
forget about it.
yeah, and be like,
It's
oh,
not
okay,
the
I'm
sort
fine
of
with you.
thing you forget that easily, I must say.
And she was like, "Girl, are you serious? Like, be serious." So anyway, so I went to get a tubal reversal, and I remember waking up in post-op, in the recovery ward, and the doctor saying, one of your tubes was just too badly damaged. We weren't able to repair it. We did repair the other one. And so you're going to be, you'll be good to go. And I just cried. I was still high. I was in pain. I just cried like a baby because I didn't know you could get pregnant with one tube. I'm a nurse, but nurses don't know everything about every field, right? And
No, I
I
mean
was,
you're educating me so much because first of all, I wasn't that familiar with tube reversal.
I was
I thought,
very familiar.
yeah,
And let me tell you, when I got my tubes tied at 28. And Dr. Fuller, he's retired now.
it's
He's an
really
older
early.
doctor, probably,
Oh,
yeah, probably late 70s at this time. And I woke up from surgery again in recovery, in pain, still out of it from the drugs. And I said, Dr. Fuller, did you cut them and burn them and snip them and all of that? And he said, no, baby. He patted me on the shoulder. No, trust me, you're gonna change your mind. I just banded you. I just put some silicone bands on you. And I was like, what do you mean? And I was upset. I cried. I was so upset with Dr. Fuller. And it's like he foresaw, 15 years later that
Yeah.
I was going to change it. He said, I've been doing this long enough, baby. You're going to
He
change your
knows.
mind.
He knows women change their minds.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
especially I guess at that young, right? And
Yeah.
at that time, 15 years ago, it wasn't as common to see women having children in their
No,
40s as it is
no.
now. It's like a trend now. It's the thing to
Yeah.
do. So because I was banded, the silicone bands actually made the reversal easier, but
Mm,
the scar tissue was just too heavy on one of the on them. So I would say when waking up from that surgery, to answer your question, was the first time that I realized I don't think this is going to be as easy as I thought it was going to be.
yeah.
But the surgeon did an excellent job
Mm.
because we got pregnant 9 months later.
Wow. That's
9 months
amazing.
later, I was like, OMG. And we had just sent off, we were getting tired of waiting, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. So the 8 month came by and I'm like, look, maybe it's not gonna work. I only have the one tube anyway. So we went to go see a fertility specialist in Austin, Texas, and we did all the tests, and they looked at my uterus and saw that I had some fibroids on the lining of the uterus. And he said, well, if we're going to do IVF, which is the only option if you don't have tubes, right, is to do IVF, in vitro fertilization. And he said, if we're going to do this, you can't have fibroids on the lining of your uterus because that's where the embryo is going to be implanted. So
Yeah.
then I had to do a fibroidectomy, right?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so we did that, and we had just mailed off because we just moved to Dallas too. So, but I still wanted to keep
There's a
my
lot
doctor.
going on.
It's a
Yeah.
lot. I still wanted to keep my doctor in Austin, so they said mail us a check, and we literally just mailed a $20,000 check to them to get the process started.
The IV
And three
process.
days
Yeah.
later, the nurse called and said, "Hey, we got the check. We're just waiting on you to, say that your period started, so we could go ahead and get you in and get your fertility meds and all of the things." And I said, "Oh, period. When was my last period?" So lo and behold, I was pregnant. They had to end up ripping up the check, and I
Oh
thought,
my
what?
gosh.
It's so funny. I thought then, what a story, right? This is going to be such a story to tell people. As soon as we wrote the check, we ended up being pregnant.
That's a
If
story.
all,
Yeah.
if only that was the story. Like, if that would have been the story, I would have been like satisfied. Like, this is such a
Yeah. But it
coincidence.
was just the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, honey, had no idea that it was just the beginning.
Mm.
So you want me to keep
Yeah,
going
keep
or okay.
going. Keep
Okay.
going. Yeah.
So got pregnant and miscarried 8 weeks later. So this is kind of the second time that I noticed fertility is not going to go the way
That's
I thought.
straightforward. Oh my
That's straightforward.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
What an
I
emotional
had
roller
known
coaster.
people. Yeah,
What?
I had known
Yeah.
people that had miscarriage before, but I had never
Had, yeah.
experienced a miscarriage before. And honestly, I didn't grieve then.
Mm.
Um, I think I cried. I remember I was actually at home in Arkansas. My mom had a surgery. My sister, who has cancer, I was helping care for her, and all three of us ended up in the same hospital on the same day.
That's crazy.
So yeah, so my mom had her knee surgery, and then while she was having surgery on the second floor, I was on the first floor with my sister who was getting blood transfusions. And then I ended up going back home, taking my sister there, and I started having a miscarriage. I ended up back
Oh,
at the hospital,
oh my
and
God.
it was about 3 in the morning when they let me go. And I said, I've been up since 5 with my mom and my sister. Like, I cannot drive. I am mentally taxed. And this was during COVID, right? But
Oh,
they
wow.
called upstairs, which my mom was on the second floor in a private room at that time, and they said, "We know there's not supposed to be anybody with the patient. Her daughter is here. She's had a miscarriage. She's been up
Mm.
since 5 this morning. Can she please come up there?" And because it was 2 beds in the private room that my mom was in.
Oh.
And so I ended up spending several hours in the bed beside
Oh
my
my
mom.
God. Bless. Oh, that's so emotional. Oh my
Yes.
God.
So that's when I was like, okay, this is gonna be a little bit
Mm.
harder than I
Yeah.
thought. So we spent another 9 months trying after that point, okay? Because I don't need IVF at this point. I got pregnant naturally. It obviously works. Obviously, God took the baby because there was probably some type of, deformity or something wasn't growing right or whatever it was. And that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
I didn't really grieve until the anniversary of it the following year. And I also forgot to say I lost the baby on my birthday. So
No. Oh no.
so
Oh,
that's my
you
birthday.
can
So
you
March
can
the
sort of
12th.
almost train your brain to forget the date if it wasn't a date that was already an important date.
Yeah, yeah. So in last year, because we're 4 years out now from that. So last year was the first year that I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, oh, I didn't think about it all day. So, it'll get better. Like they say, time heals all things. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so 9 months later, again, I'm like, okay, something is going on. I'm not getting pregnant. Maybe we should revisit the IVF thing. So we did, and the first thing the doctor says, well, let's look at your tube and see what's going on with your tube. Well, the tube blocked. The one tube that was good
Oh,
blocked
wow.
again. So we're right back at the point where the only thing that is going to get me pregnant is IVF. And that started our IVF journey. So,
Yeah. So I know IVF can be financially draining as well,
yeah,
uh, and emotionally exhausting. How
right.
did the cost factor, how did the cost factor into your decision making?
Um, Cost didn't factor into a decision making because it was something that just had to happen. Um, I will say the one thing that we talked about was how much are we not willing to spend? I
Mm,
knew I was not willing to take out loans.
mm,
I knew I was not willing to go into debt.
mm.
And so thankfully, as an entrepreneur, especially around that time, I always say there was a silver lining in the dark cloud of COVID because the work that I do in public health workforce development, there were a lot of contracts. And so we were able to just pay cash for everything. My husband's insurance didn't cover anything. We had to pay cash for everything. So thankfully, I'm married to a hardworking Nigerian man. He
Yeah.
works two jobs. And then I had an abundance of contracts when we were going through this. So we did not have to take out loans. But at
Yeah.
the same time, because of course I did a lot of research and talking to people, and God forbid those Facebook groups, they can be a blessing and a curse, right? But I knew there were people, they're like, I'm on my eighth round, I'm on my ninth
Oh,
round, like we've
wow.
taken out so many loans, we're in debt,
Oh my
like we can't.
goodness.
And I was not willing to alter my quality of life to
That's
go
right.
after this.
Okay.
So I think our conversation was, how many rounds are we going to go? And I think
Got
at
it.
that point we said two or three.
Yeah.
We didn't want to spend more than $100,000.
Yeah.
And so that was the conversation. But
Okay.
it wasn't like, oh, we're not going to do it. Like my husband wanted a child. It was something that was never off the table
Yes.
until, and we'll get to that. For me, it was off the table at some point, but it
Yeah.
was never off the table in the beginning.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you started another round of IVF.
So, well, at that point, we hadn't started at all. But then, yeah, so we did the tubal fibroidectomy. Sorry, we did the fibroidectomy. And then we started the first round. And I was doing all the things like I was doing acupuncture, and I started going to meditation with the meditation coach, and I had a personal trainer, and I was doing like this raw food thing, and I bought this book, and I was taking all these supplements, and I wasn't using dryer sheets or plastic in the house. Like I was doing all these things that they say you should do to improve your egg quality and things. And I took my first shot, and a few hours later, I was like, oh, I feel so hot. I feel so warm. I just don't feel good. COVID.
Oh
So I got
no.
COVID and we had to stop. Like, oh, stop.
Wow.
You got to wait till, 2 or 3 months because we don't want anything to happen. And they put you under anesthesia to do certain procedures and stuff. And they didn't want that. So I was so frustrated, right? Okay, so that was the first attempt. So then a couple months later, we started again. And of course, you're taking all these injections and you're taking all of these pills, and none of that is fun. I didn't realize that the hormones would be so harsh on my body.
Mm,
And
mm,
so didn't really notice it the first time around, but as you continue to go, the scale is going up. And for
mm.
me, like my joints, my hands, my knees, my hips, everything was just inflamed. My whole body was
Wow.
inflamed.
Yeah.
And so we did it. You go into your appointments, and before they do your egg retrieval, they'll do an ultrasound to see how many egg follicles you have. Every follicle should have an egg inside of it.
Mm.
And so I would always get excited because they would say, "Oh, we've got 12 follicles." So I'm thinking, "Ooh, that's 12 eggs.
Nice.
We're good, right?"
12
And that's a
chances.
low
Yeah.
number. Like some people will get like 20 some follicles or whatever.
Mm,
I knew going in because at this time, the tubal reversal was at 39, and then we started at 41.
mm,
And so my numbers, my AMH, anti-Müllerian hormone, went down considerably in 2 years. So they had already told me, you're not going to produce that many eggs. We're not going to get that many when we do the retrieval.
mm.
Well, when they said we're not going to get that many, I didn't know they were only going to get one every time, right? And so
Wow.
that's what would happen when I would do mine.
Oh.
They would see 10, 12. I think the highest I got was like 16 follicles on one. And then after the first time, they got in, and most of the follicles were empty. So we were able to retrieve one. And so what she said is, My physician had a black physician, a reproductive endocrinologist, which is a rarity, and a black female at that. And she said that I premature my follicles rupture prematurely because they try to time your trigger shot 36 hours before they retrieve them. And so the first time is just experimental. They're just throwing some treatment at you. They really don't know how it's going to go. I always tell women, if you were successful and got pregnant on your first time, that in itself is a miracle because it's all experimental. And
Mm,
so she's like, well, since most of your follicles were empty, that means we need to time your trigger shot about 4 hours earlier. It's just a mess. And so you get this kind of hype every time that,
mm,
oh, you're going to get all of these chances, and you don't. So we got one. I opted for a fresh transfer, meaning 3 days later, they will then put like they fertilize the egg with the sperm,
mm.
create an embryo, and then um, they will then put the embryo inside of you like 3 days later. So I did that, was not successful, right? And so we did it again. Um, what happened the second time? For some reason, oh, we went in and my progesterone was so high, they
Mm.
could not do the transfer. Like
Oh,
I went in, I took the medication, I was ready for them to wheel me back. You know, of course they're drawing the labs and all of those things. And she comes back and she says, I have horrible news. We're not going to be able to do the transfer. Your progesterone is entirely too high, which is it won't stick or something like it just won't be successful. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because again, I just had one on the second time. I just had
oh
one. And she
no.
said, so we're going to have to freeze it.
Mm.
And then, you go from there.
Try again. How
So,
did you and your husband navigate this moments where hope and disappointment just kept colliding?
yeah,
Such
yeah,
a
yeah.
stressful time. Yeah.
And I actually just messed up on something. I just remember, no, the fresh transfer, I apologize. The fresh transfer is where they actually put it right back in you. So I remember my husband had to go upstairs and give a sperm sample that day when they took out the first egg because they will fertilize it then and then immediately transfer you. That's why it's called a fresh transfer. The other is called a frozen transfer,
Yeah.
where they send it to the lab, they fertilize it, they let it grow into a blastocyte over 5 to 7 days,
Got
and
it.
then they freeze the blastocyte, which is an embryo now, and they can implant it into you at a different time, right? I did not want that. I wanted because I just wanted to get it all over with. I didn't want to wait, right? So anyway, so the fresh transfer did not take. The second time my progesterone was too high, so we couldn't do a fresh transfer. Of course, my husband had went upstairs and gave a sample for nothing, right? And to answer your question, men I think are naturally very stoic
Mm,
and reserved and don't share their feelings. And so a lot of what my husband experienced, although I could see it in his demeanor,
yeah.
it wasn't talked about until after because his thought process was, she's going through so much, she's going through enough right
I don't
now.
want to add on top of that,
Yes,
you
but
know.
there was a lot of anxiety on his part.
Yeah, and
Even,
nobody thinks about, I
you know,
personally haven't really thought about his feelings that much, you know?
Yes. Even I didn't realize how much the miscarriage affected him until the next year.
Mm,
And the only reason is we were talking about it because, again, I grieved it the following year. I
mm,
was like, probably 2 months out. Why am I feeling this way? I just started feeling very, very sad. I couldn't get out of the funk. And I got back in therapy because I'll get in and out of therapy. And my therapist, or I was talking about the miscarriage, and she said, were you pregnant around this time last year? And I said, yeah, I just found out in January and I miscarried in March. And she said, your body is remembering.
mm.
And I grieved that first year. I really allowed myself to grieve. And I was talking to my husband about it. And he said something because we were separate. I was taking care of my mom and my sister, and he was on a work trip in Austin.
Got
and
it.
he was with one of his friends. And so I'm having to call him from the hospital. Hey, I'm going to the hospital. I'm bleeding. This is happening, blah, blah, blah. So I call him at 2 in the morning and say, there's no heartbeat, right? So he's feeling bad because he's not there. He's feeling upset because he even let me travel, right? Even though I went to go take care of my family. He's later told me, like, I should have never let her travel by herself, right? And then he says, his friend, he says, Enno was crying harder than I was crying. And that's when I realized, like, oh, you were
You
crying.
cried? Oh,
Yeah, and you were talking to one of your best friends about it, and he was crying too.
oh,
But up until that point, I had no idea,
got it.
right? And so you bring up such a great point is that the men, even now, like when we talk about, and we're not having any more children, and
Mhm.
he'll say, I thought I was going to lose you in labor with this one because it was a 53-hour labor, right?
Wow.
And I could see that concern on his face. I could see that worry on his face. I don't think they always have the words to articulate how they're feeling, but he hates the IVF process. He hated having to give me those injections. He hated every time we went, did a procedure. I had a uterine biopsy. I had the retrievals. I had the transfers. It's all freaking painful. He hated that. And so he's like, I just don't. It's part of the reason why we went to Nigeria, right? And we did the
Yeah,
surrogacy
yeah,
process and all of
got
that
it.
because he's like, I just don't want you to do anything else to your
Do
body.
yeah,
Yeah.
like enough is enough. Because
Yeah,
yeah,
that was his words. He was like, enough is enough. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this then sort of led you to consider egg donation, and why particularly
I
Nigeria?
never would have considered.
Yeah.
So after so the embryo gets frozen, right? And I tell the doctor, throw everything at me. I'm only doing this one more time. So we only did transfers a total of 2 times. We had a whole bunch of stops and start, stop, start, but we only did it a total of 2 times. And I said, do every test in the book. And she says, well, the one thing we haven't done is a uterine biopsy. She said, where we can see on a cellular level what's going on with your uterus, and then we can adjust our plan of care from that. So we did a uterine biopsy, and it came back about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later, and she said, you've got some inflammatory markers. And I said, well, what does that mean? I can't remember the exact name of it. And she said, well, mostly when we see this in women, it means that they have endometriosis. And I said, I don't have endometriosis. I said, I don't have heavy periods. I don't have painful periods. I said, I know people that have endometriosis. And she said, well, you can also have silent endometriosis, which
Wow.
I had never heard of before.
Me
I
neither.
said,
Yeah.
okay, so what is the treatment for it? So she said, we're going to put you in chemical menopause for at least 3 months. It's going to give your uterus time to reset, and then we're going to do your last transfer.
Mm.
So chemical menopause, let's just say if that is what menopause looks like, I give me every hormone they have. I don't care about any kind of cancer risk. It was one of the worst times. So
Wow,
it is
really?
it's a monthly injection. That injection was $1,400 out
Oh
of pocket
no, for one.
for one injection.
That's crazy.
And you get I didn't get hair loss, but I got every other menopause.
That is crazy. Like forcing you into
It
menopause.
forces you into menopause, so you don't have any periods,
Oh
but
my goodness.
the vaginal dryness, the mood swings, the hot flashes were
Oh my
probably
goodness.
the worst thing. If I'm working in the office, I could kind of like, I could do this, I could work, I could do things where it kind of takes my mind off of it. But once you go to bed at night, you're just laying there. There is nothing that takes your mind off of it. And so I was writing a book at the time, and I always say it's from that chemical menopause that I was able to write that book in 3 months because there were many nights I
You
could not
couldn't
sleep.
sleep.
So I would come in here 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning and just write my book because I could not sleep. So I remember the third month I called her and I said, if I have to take another injection, I am going to just stop everything. I cannot live like this. I will not live like this. I'm miserable. I don't like how my body is. And so we stopped. And I think we waited another month and then we did the transfer, which was not successful.
Oh my gosh.
And
I mean, at this point, Quisha, like, how are you even functioning as a human being?
at that point,
Like,
I did. I completely came undone at that point. I came undone at that point. My husband's mother died. He went
oh,
to Nigeria. So he was in Nigeria when we got, because you have a 2 week window to know if you're pregnant or not. So he was there for the transfer. He went to Nigeria. And so I got the news. I was here alone
oh
when I
my
got the news.
God.
Yeah.
Alone that is
And
just
at this point, I am done. I want a
like, how do
divorce.
you even get out of bed after,
Oh,
like,
I didn't most days. I did
yeah.
not most days. And I told him, I said, I want a divorce. I want to give you a divorce. You are
Uh,
young enough. He's 3 years
because
younger than
I
me.
need my life back and you deserve to
And I
get
told
what
him,
you
I said,
want.
I know how bad
Wow.
this is for you to have a child. I have
Yeah,
done all that I can do. I will not do this anymore. I cannot do this. I was emotionally broken at that point.
you must be. Like,
And I think also it's hard for me because I am a person that anything I put my mind to, I achieve. If
that's
I
right.
believe if I just work hard enough at it, I'm going to do it. So failure is not something that I am accustomed to.
Mm,
So at
mm.
this point, I am a failure. I am broken. I am not a woman. I am all of the, even though I have two
It
children,
feels like you were dished out all of the emotions and all of the sort of hard feelings a woman could possibly experience in a
everything.
lifetime all at once.
The
Like,
only thing that kept me is I kept saying, imagine if I had no children and I was going through this. And it's the empathy and compassion for the other women in the group
that's
that
right.
had no children that were saying, this is my sixth cycle. This is my eighth cycle. And I would say, God, I do have children, but why do I feel like this? And
Mm.
so putting myself in their shoes is like the only little ounce of, but I was angry at God. I was upset. I did everything you asked. We did this, we did that. You know how important this is for my husband. You know, this is the only thing missing from our marriage, all of those things. And so I called his dad. I called one of his best friends. I told them I am going to give him a divorce. I mean, I was done. I hated it for my son who was 14 at the time. And I even told him, I said, how would you feel if me and my husband got a divorce? And he's like, no. If y'all want a baby that bad, just adopt one. And that he was just like, y'all
That's
want
what
a
I
baby
love
that bad.
about kids,
They just
honestly.
say it how it's straight. And I said, well, it's not that easy because he wants to have his own child. And he was
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want y'all to get a divorce, right?
Mm.
And the day I told my husband, of course, naturally he was broken that it didn't happen. And he said something that just sticks to me to this day. And he said, you are the joy of my life.
Oh.
And that is not even something that's even on the table.
Mm.
So I
Oh,
was
that's
in
so
therapy
beautiful. And
every week. Every week in therapy, and then about a month later you go in and talk to the doctor and talk about things, and she said something that to this day she doesn't even know it bothered me so bad, and I need to let it go. I need to even tell her, like, I had a baby and this is what happened. But she said, I don't think with your egg quality, because based off my lab, she said, I don't think you're going to be successful with your eggs. She said, honestly, I want you to consider egg donorship. And for me, I was so angry because I feel that when you start this journey, that doctors should say, we can do everything we can. You can do everything right, everything by the book, and still not be successful. And at some point, if you are not successful, there could be a point when we mention you may need egg donor, right?
yeah,
So for
prepare you for
me,
it. Yeah.
I think there should be a preparation. There is such a, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Oh,
It's such a illusion of hope.
oh,
They never harp on this is the negative thing. You may not be. We may have to do this 8 times. And you're not successful.
that is so
It,
critical,
it's
though.
it's so detrimental for your psyche. I
Yeah.
also believe that every RE, like I believe it should be law, every RE clinic, reproductive endocrinology clinic, should automatically have a therapist on call, on
Mm,
staff. I
mm.
do not think that as a woman or as a married couple or a couple in general, that you should go through this process and not have mental health resources available.
Yes,
I was able to do that because I've always just been in and out of therapy as I needed it for situations in my life. But everybody doesn't have access to that or doesn't know that. I tell people I don't recommend you go through it at all if you don't have therapy.
that's right.
So, so I was not on board for this at all. Again, I revisited the divorce thing again. I was just not happy. My husband had already been thinking that way. He didn't tell me until a year after his mom died that his mom said, "Stop putting her through all this. Why don't you just have a baby the way these other people are having babies in Nigeria and just have you somebody else's egg?" My mother-in-law was very progressive.
He is, I must say. I
She was
mean,
not your tradition, because even when he called her and said, like, I want to marry this Black American woman, she's got two children, because it's kind of taboo, right, to marry a woman with kids, and he
it's not
said,
the
she
most
said
common, yeah,
it's not very common.
accepted,
And
yeah.
yeah, and she said, he was like, "Do you love her? Is she good to you? Are y'all good together? Then hey, I support it," right? So a year before, she had already put that bug in her ear, like, use somebody else's egg. Like, everybody's doing it, nobody says it, right? And she's right. Because
Jay's right, because this is,
it's
like you said to me, a booming industry, but booming in
booming
the
in.
most quiet sort of way because it's not necessarily widely
Oh,
acknowledged,
especially there, especially in Nigeria,
Especially,
right?
yes, yes.
So I'm in therapy probably at this point 2 times every week. I am so broken. I can barely take meetings. I'm taking meetings with my camera off.
Oh,
Ironically, that quarter I made the most money I've ever made. I made a six-figure quarter. And it's when I learned in my business that if I just focus on the two things that matter the most, getting clients and keeping my clients, right? I
yeah.
couldn't do anything else. I couldn't do social media. I couldn't do anything else but focus on doing the client work for the clients I had and then discovery sessions for new clients. And
Got it.
that actually was a turning point for me as far as the type of entrepreneur and CEO I was. So that was a good lesson learned there. But my husband came back and said, "Why don't you go on a trip? Why don't you
Mm.
go somewhere? Why don't you, you've been through enough. Let's kind of table this. Let's not think about it." And I was listening to, of course, I was listening to all kinds of podcasts, fertility podcasts and YouTube channels and things. And someone had mentioned a grief tour.
The grief tour, that was another new time that you told me about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this particular person said, when you have this tremendous loss from IVF, it is not uncommon for couples to make like ridiculous purchases or go on trips and do all this stuff like you haven't spent enough money, right? And so we did, and so I went on about six places, and I spent a week on the beach with my husband for our anniversary, and we did some other things too. And so we had these conversations, and he basically said, "It's the only way." He says, "The only way that we stay married, that I get a child that has my DNA." And he said, "I'm just concerned your family won't look at the child as theirs." And I said, "I'm concerned your family won't look at the child as mine," right?
Got
So
it.
we had to have these conversations with our family. And my mom was like, "Girl, that's going to be y'all baby. We ain't worried about that." And I had talked to his family and the same, well, not his siblings. I just talked to his dad at that time. And his dad was like, "No, that's going to be y'all's baby and this and that." Because at this time, his siblings didn't know. And so I still was very reluctant. I still was not settled at all. I did agree to do it. We had a virtual consultation with the clinic in Nigeria, and I was so upset after that consultation. I cried. I was
Oh, why is
angry.
that?
She was saying stuff like God's will, and
Mm.
Nigerians are very spiritual. And I just kept thinking, this can't be God's will. This can't be God's will. Of course, I'm still coming from a place, I'm wounded.
Yeah, because you kind of feel left out in a way. This
Oh,
procedure might,
totally left out.
yes.
I have written a lot of journal entries, and I even had dreams about this. Totally left out the process. no control. Lack control is a big issue for me. And no control at all. The IVF process, you can't control the outcome or anything at all. But this, there's no control. And I went through everything as far as, she was talking about how you pick out the donor, right? I didn't want a donor that looked like me because I didn't want there to be anybody saying, "Oh, she looks just like you," or "He looks just like you." Because in the back of my head, I'd be like, "There's no way they can look like me. They're not mine."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I went through all these internal struggles. So I
Wow.
was so angry after that consultation that we had got to that point, right? So the only thing that I knew is that my body was out of the process and I was happy because I was 300 pounds at that point. I was unhealthy. I was in pain every day. And I called, I found this surgeon. I did research a lot of surgeons because I'm like, I'm going to have weight loss surgery. I've been thinking about it anyway. And I don't qualify in the US. So, US healthcare, in order for you to qualify for bariatric surgery, you have to be 100 pounds overweight plus have a comorbidity,
What?
meaning you have to have diabetes or high blood pressure or
Oh,
something like that, right?
yeah.
So I've always been overweight as an adult, never 300 pounds, but I've never had comorbidities. I am a big woman, but I'm a healthy woman, right? Because I
Yeah.
know what to eat and I know the things to do. So I don't qualify here. And if I would have paid out of pocket, it would have been about 25, 30K for the sleeve, gastric sleeve. So I researched and I found out you can have gastric sleeve in Mexico for like $5,000. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And my nurse brain, as much as I wanted to go to the tropical, beautiful places, my nurse brain was like, go where the best surgeons are. And the best surgeons I found were in Tijuana, Mexico. And so I booked it. I booked it. I paid my money and I put it on the calendar for the end of the summer. And so I did my grief tour and, went on cruise. Me and my son had a mother-son cruise and
Oh, that's
we
sweet.
had trips and we went on a family vacation and we went to family reunion. And so the last stop on my grief tour was Mexico. And that's where I went. And my husband went with me and I had my surgery and I stayed, I think you stay 2 days afterwards and then you fly back home. And so at this point, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Of course, the weight starts falling off of me, right? And I'm like, okay, we're gonna go to Nigeria, no, because we did the surgery in August. I'm like, okay, we're gonna go to Nigeria in November. And I'm still working with my therapist and I'm still, trying to get used to the idea. And I'm starting to, my baby sister says, just look at it like adoption. Like it's no different than adoption. You're gonna
Oh,
go and
that's actually an interesting point. Yeah.
yeah, and I
Except,
hadn't
yeah.
thought about that. And she's like, you're gonna
Yeah.
go and they're gonna tell you your baby is ready, come pick it up,
Yeah.
And like it's just a bonus because it's gonna have your husband's
Your
DNA.
husband's, yeah, I did think about it, but if you do think about it like that, it makes a lot of sense,
That's
actually.
the only way
Yeah.
I was able to find some type of
Acceptance.
acceptance. That
Yeah.
is the only way. Because at this point, I'm still not 100% sold. I'm still telling my husband, this is your baby. I'm doing this for you because I love you. I know you're going to be a great father because he already was to my boys. And I was able to find some acceptance in that. And so, yeah. And so 3 months after the surgery, I think I'm down at this point 60 pounds. I'm looking good. I'm feeling good. And the family thinks we're heading to Nigeria to do Friendsgiving, to do a Thanksgiving celebration, which we did. It's probably one of my favorite trips to Nigeria. And yeah, and we went to go pick out an egg donor and for my husband to drop off his sample and to do the IVF process and have the embryo implanted in an unknown surrogate. Yeah.
Wow. At this point, how do you hold space for both science and faith in your story without minimizing either? How did you sort of balance this
Great,
out? Yeah.
great question. So I am from the belief that science comes from God. It's God inspired. And so I believe that God put people here with certain gifts, and to create certain tools and equipment and things to help us, in areas where our bodies are no longer capable of doing things before. Um, I know there are some people that wrestle with that. I know even my pastor, we had talked about, well, we had had a service and he had said like he doesn't if people want to go through the IVF process or use egg donors, that's completely up to them. He's like, but me, I personally, I don't subscribe to that. I think that, some people believe if God didn't give you the ability to have a baby, then you just can't have the baby, right? If it's something that God wanted you to do or have, it would be there, right? So I did read things about that. I did think about that, but I never felt a conviction that it wasn't something that I shouldn't do.
Mm,
I felt that God would be more upset if my marriage failed.
mm.
And honestly, I don't think my marriage would have failed if we wouldn't have been able to have children. What I was more scared of, and this is what I told my husband, I said, 20 years from now, I don't want you to look at me and resent me.
That's right. That's such an important point.
I said, because
That
I
being
don't want
later.
you, I said, I know that you love me and
Yeah,
that you want to spend your life with me, but I also don't want to be a source of resentment 20 years from now. When
that's
you look
right.
back over your life and say, I never got to have a child of my own
Mm,
because I
mm.
chose to love her, you know.
And you don't want to
So
carry that either. You
I don't
don't
want to carry
want to,
that.
yeah,
Did not want to carry. I would rather let him go
yeah.
than carry that, because I have a friend that is in that situation now, going through menopause, and lived with a man, was married to a man for 20 years that didn't want children. Well, they're divorced now. And
Gosh,
they
that's
divorced
hard.
3 years ago, and now she's going through menopause, and she totally missed her window
Oh,
because she was with a partner that didn't want to at that time.
that's hard. Yeah,
It's very hard.
yeah,
Very hard. You
yeah.
cannot come back from that.
Can't go back. Yeah,
You cannot. So that's how I was able to reconcile it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so you picked, you chose the donor and
That day, even though it ended up being a very happy day because I had to put on a smile and things for his siblings, because of course they didn't know at that time. And we did some tourism and things. I made them go do a lot of things in Nigeria that they would probably not do because I'm a very adventurous person. So the day ended up being great, but that morning I was just, I don't I guess it was gut wrenching, if I could just say one word. So you
yeah,
sit in the office, um and you're reading this contract, and it's saying things like, if you don't pick up the baby's going to go to the motherless baby home, right? We call it orphanage here. They call it motherless baby home.
yeah,
If the
yeah,
baby is born with a deformity or some type of defect, and you don't want, or like Down syndrome, if you don't want the baby's going to go to a motherless baby home. And it's talking about things related to the surrogate and things related to the donor and things related to you and the legal processes. And I remember sitting there thinking, this is so unnatural. This is so unnatural. Like, having a baby should be a very natural, very beautiful, very God inspired. And I'm like, I'm reading and I'm signing this paper, my husband and
yeah.
I'm just like, this is
It's
the
just like this
most,
is not how it's meant to be. Like,
yeah, I'm like, this is the most sterile, unnatural
yeah,
thing. And then when you look at the donors, right, you don't know their names, but you see their pictures, you see all their stuff, right?
eh,
They recruit from University of Lagos. So I'm seeing their degrees, and of course you see their family history and what they have and what they don't have. And of course you can just check anything, right? So I'm thinking,
you
are they
don't
lying?
know for sure.
You don't know for sure.
Yeah,
And then I'm also thinking, am I exploiting these young women, right? Because
that's
of course they're
right.
only getting women that need the money, right? Because they're being paid. And are
That's
they going to have
right.
enough eggs later when they get older? So now I'm thinking from a social justice standpoint, like, so all of these things are going through my mind. And finally, I'm like, I don't want to pick somebody that looks like me, but then I'm like, ugh, I don't want to pick somebody that doesn't, that's not attractive. So finally, I picked the smartest one. I picked the one that had the smartest degree.
Mm,
Because I think it was like we had three that actually had retrieved that day. Because this clinic just keeps them in rotation, so they have people like coming in to give their eggs to do their retrieval like every other day. And so one was journalism, one was computer science, and one was some math, a very high upper level math or something. And I was like, everybody can go for that, so we just gonna pick her. And so, and my husband saw her. When
oh,
he went in to do his sample, he said she was sitting right across from him.
No.
Yeah, because I think we were there about 11 o'clock in the morning, but he had to go and leave his sample at like 6 in the morning at the lab.
Got
And he
it.
said she was sitting right across from me. So they were, and so I kind of felt like maybe it's like serendipity, like maybe this is a sign, even though, our baby, their parents never met, like they saw each other in passing. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, God, we're gonna go with this one, right? I'm telling my brain
Like
anything
it
is
was meant to be.
yeah. So we go with that one and we have an hour-long consultation with the office manager and we tell her two embryos. Put
Mhm.
two embryos in, not one, not more. And again, I feel horrible, and she can see it all over my face. Plus, she knows I was not nice when we did the virtual consultation, right? So
Yeah.
she's at this time, she's like, I can see it all over your face, like she's talking about this, and of course, hopeful, right? This particular clinic, they have a lot of multiples,
Mm.
meaning they have a lot of twins, they have a lot of triplets, and
Yeah.
so we leave. 2 weeks later, we're back in the States. We get a call. No, let me back up a little bit. The day before, we are to get the call to let us know if the surrogate is pregnant. Um, she calls and says they implanted three embryos, and I'm livid.
Because you're like, you said two.
We
Because you
said
could end
two.
up with three.
We said two. They made a mistake, and my
Oh.
husband's pissed too, but my husband is like, it's Nigeria. I can't tell her what I want to. He's scared they'll mess the whole thing up.
Yeah.
They'll give the girl something to drink so she has it. So I'm screaming, and he's like, this is Nigeria. This is how. So again, differences in healthcare, right?
Yeah.
We can't mess this opportunity up.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens.
Let
And
it
I am
be.
coming from a nursing, my nurse brain is taking over. The more embryos, the harder the pregnancy is.
Mm.
The worse outcomes for all of the babies, the worst outcome for the surrogate. Like all of these things are going on. I am just furious. And then I realized later that day, when was my last period? Like,
Mm.
I can't remember my last period. So I look at I'm like, oh, I'm 9 days late. This is weird. So I told him, I said, I've never been this late in my life. I'm either pregnant or I'm really sick. Either way, I gotta find out. So I said, we're gonna find out if the surrogate is pregnant tomorrow. I'm gonna go to CVS and get a pregnancy test. We'll find out both.
Yeah.
If it's negative, I'm gonna go straight to the ER because something is wrong. And I was feeling bad, but I was contributing it to nerves, to anxiety, to being jet lagged because it takes you a while to get your sleep and stuff back on track because of the time difference. So we get a call at 4 a.m. our time and says the surrogate did not get pregnant. And my husband is immediately just deflated at this
Oh,
point.
yeah.
I am not deflated, but I remember one of us, it may have been him, but one of us was like, oh, more money down the drain. And mind you, we went to Nigeria because it was significantly cheaper. So if we
Mm.
would have been here in the States doing an egg donor with a surrogate, we would have spent anywhere from 80,000 to 150,000.
That's a
We
lot.
went there and we knew we were going to spend at the minimum, if they didn't get pregnant, about 7,000 versus if the surrogate did get pregnant and had the baby or babies, about 20,000. So significant difference.
That,
Again,
yeah.
medical tourism,
Yes,
right?
medical
Very, very popular. So I
tourism.
say it will not be my last time
That's
participating in medical tourism. So that was the thing. It was like, oh, more money. Because at this point, I don't know how much we're in. We're close to or past our 100,000 at this point. So
this is just in cash, never mind the emotional and all
that's
of
it, which
the
is a bigger payout to
bigger
me.
costs.
A
Yeah.
bigger cost, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, well, let me just get this over with. I go in, I pee on the stick, it immediately, no time shows positive.
Oh my
And
God,
I'm
you
looking
can't
at
make
this.
this up. Just can't.
And I'm looking at the stick and I said, come here.
You're just like, no. Like you
And
sound
he's
like you're
like,
in a
what? And I
movie or
show
something.
him, and he's like, what is that? What does that mean? And I said, it means I'm pregnant. And he's like, well, what does that mean? Like he's in such shock and he stumbles
Can
backwards.
he
And
can
he,
actually.
he stumbles backward. He sits on the tub and he's just quiet. And so at this
Wow.
point I start laughing. I'm like, I'm just laughing uncontrollably. And he's like, but what does that mean? He still is, it's not. And I'm like,
Not processing. He's just it's
the
hard to
man did not,
digest,
the man
you
did not
know?
touch me for probably 3 days. Like he was so scared, in denial, unsure, this, that. And this was on a, no, this was on a Friday.
Mm.
On Saturday, he was still in denial. I took another test and I said, my tube, at this point, I'm thinking it's not a viable pregnancy because my tube was blocked. So I said, maybe there was a little hole that opened. And if that is the case, I'm probably pregnant in my tube. Like, this is what I'm telling myself. I'm probably pregnant in my tube. We're not going to sleep until we know for sure.
That's right.
So on a Saturday morning, I found an outpatient lab that was open, and we went and paid for hormone panel. We paid for the HCG to see if I was actually pregnant. And the results came back on Monday morning, and the hormones were where they were supposed to be. It was a viable pregnancy, and still didn't know the location though. And at this point, again, he's still not touching. He can't hug me. He can't touch me. He's like, still like, and so I called and I found an outpatient ultrasound place. They just do ultrasounds and,
Yeah.
the 3D, 4D, 8D ultrasounds of
Yeah.
pregnancy. And they said, we can get you in on Tuesday. And
Mm.
I went Tuesday and I was like, I just need to verify that this is a pregnancy and it's in my uterus and like not in my tubes. And she's like, oh, there it is, right there. It's in the right place.
Without any
And
idea what you've been through. So,
and that's when we were both like, oh my God.
my God.
Of
Wow.
course we held our breath, the whole pregnancy, right? But that's when we were finally like, oh my God, we did all of that. We went all over the world. And
Hallelujah.
and that's when I thought, God, you did all this so that I had this testimony.
Wow.
And I said, if it was because of this testimony, it was all worth it.
Oh, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, that's so
And
good.
so, yeah, and every month, of course, holding breath, not knowing for sure if it's going to be
Yes.
viable, if it's
Yes.
going to stick. And I think I finally just exhaled. My doctor said the baby would be viable, like if I was to go into preterm labor at week 24.
Mm.
And that's when I finally was like, I made it. Like, even if I go early, I made it. Labor was rough. It was 53 hours.
Wow.
Um, yeah,
That's more than 2 days. That's crazy.
at the 48
2 days.
hour mark, I gave up and said, let's just do the C-section. I was really trying not to have a C-section. And this is why you need to have a really good doctor. My doctor, Dr. Anumadu, Nigerian, she had been
Okay.
with me from the first pregnancy. She's the one that referred me to the Black reproductive endocrinologist.
Oh,
So
got
she
it.
knew our story and
She
she
knows
goes to
the
church.
whole journey. She's been
News,
there right from
no,
the
didn't even
beginning.
know we went to the same church because we go to different services.
Oh no. Oh my goodness.
Didn't even know this. Let me tell you how we found out. So I went up to one of the pastors and said, I need, we have this ministry called the Genesis Ministries for people trying to conceive.
Mm.
And after I got pregnant, I remember that a woman gave me a book called Supernatural Childbirth about 9 months before I got pregnant. And she said, because I was sharing my story with her, and she said, she said, I've given this book to 23 women, and all 23 have gotten pregnant.
Wow.
And
That
I
is,
said, oh, tell me the book. I said, I'm going to buy it on Amazon. She said, no. She said, I'm going to tell you the book, but don't buy it. She said, I have to buy it and gift it to you because that's the only way that it works. It's been working to this day. Another believer.
that's
So
insane.
she mailed the book to me, and it was right around the last retrieval. And I
Yeah.
was so broken, I just put it in my drawer. Never opened it, never read it. It wasn't until after I got pregnant that I remembered I have that book, Supernatural Childbirth. So
Wow.
I went and got it, pulled it out of my nightstand, and I started reading it. Well, I wanted to then gift it to the Genesis ministry at my church.
Mm.
So I went to one of the pastors and I said, can you direct me to whoever is over the Genesis ministry? He said, yeah, that's Dr. Uche. Let me find her. Let me show you who she is. So I'm coming up the hall. My husband is behind me. He's like, Dr. Uche. Now I call her Dr. Anumadu, which is her last
Her
name,
last
right?
name, which is
Yeah. So
first
I
name.
said,
Yeah.
he said, Dr. Uche, somebody here wants to talk to you about the Genesis ministry. And she turns around and she says, well, hello there. How are you? And I was like, I'm fine. And so I just started talking like normal. She said, you don't know who I am, do you? And I'm looking and I'm like, because she's got her wig and her makeup and
Yeah.
all her
She
cards,
looks very different.
Yeah, she looks very different. And she said, I know Madu. And I said, you're my doctor. You're my OB. And so I'm laughing and I'm like, babe, come here, come here, come here. And I said, look, who is this? And he was like, that's your OB, that's your doctor. So we have been going to church together all this time. It's just so the way God works is just something else.
Oh my God, that is
Yeah. So anyway, so I ended
so
up buying
amazing.
20. I'm telling you, so much was God ordained. I bought 20 supernatural childbirth books, and we had our next meeting because I'm in the ministry now. And the next meeting, there were 20 couples that were there. It was the
Wow.
exact number that I needed to give for the to give to the book. I don't know if anybody's gotten
I
pregnant
think
as a
you're giving
result
me
of it yet,
goose
but
pimples because there's just a lot of, there's a
it's
lot
so
in your
I'm telling you,
story.
it is a book. It is a book. I know it is. I have started bits of it, but I do know
Yeah,
it will be a book
that's
eventually.
amazing.
Um,
Yeah.
so um, so yeah, so she knew I did not want a C-section.
Mm,
She also knew I wanted to try as much as possible to go natural without any medication. So I have a condition where I cannot handle anesthesia and epidurals very well. It bottoms my blood pressure. I end up waking up, they're coding me and all kinds of things that happen with both of my boys. And it happens sometimes when I have surgical procedures. So I always have to tell the anesthesiologist, like, look, my pressure's gonna bottom out. Be ready to give me something.
mm,
So she wasn't on call when I went into labor,
mm,
but she was talking to them the whole time.
mm.
I don't care what she says. She does not want a C-section. She may give up. She might get tired. She might get frustrated. Talk her out of a C-section, right? Her blood pressure, if she doesn't want pain meds, she may change her mind. Watch her blood pressure. It's gonna drop. So I'm wondering, like over the course of these 2 days, while the doctors are coming in saying, anytime you want to just give up and you want to go to the OR, we'll do a C-section, just let us know. And I'll say, no, I'm fine, but thank you for letting me know. A few hours later, okay, I want the C-section. I can't do it anymore. Let's do it. Then they would talk me out of it. Well, all the surgeries you've had have been on your abdomen. You got quite a bit of scar tissue. Your recovery time is going to be delayed. And then my nurse brain would take over. Oh, they're right. Let me just do a few more hours. I can hang in there a few more. Every shift, there's like 3 or 4 shift changes, the same
The
thing.
same
And I'm like,
thing.
they come in here when they first start and say, whenever you
It's
wave the white
okay, whatever you
flag,
want.
you can do it. But they're changing their mind. And it's because she was having a conversation with
Yeah.
every one of them. So at the 48th hour, I said, I cannot do this anymore. I don't care what y'all say. I'm done. I'm hungry. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. By then, I had already given up and got the epidural. My blood pressure did bottom. It got to like 60 over 30. But because they were aware, they immediately hung a bag, pushed it up. Of course, my husband, one of his friends, told him he had a dream I died in childbirth.
Oh my goodness.
I did not know this until we got home.
Oh wow.
My husband is standoffish. He is pacing the room. He is going in and out of the room. I didn't know he's on the phone with friends. They're praying. They had a goat slaughtered in Nigeria. Just all the things, girl.
Oh my God.
All the things.
That's crazy.
OMG. So while I appreciate his friend circle, I really do. I wish his friend would have kept that to himself because it really affected his experience.
Experience of it. He was just
It it
almost like he
affected.
was waiting to
He
see
was
where,
waiting, and then when
yeah.
my blood pressure dropped and
Oh
and the
wow.
pain that I was in, and it was taking so long, he really thought I was about to die, which is
Wow.
why he does not want to do this again. So
Mm.
anyway, so I didn't know all of that at the time. I'm just like angry. My doula was in there, and I'm fussing at him, and you're not being supported. You haven't touched me. You did it. This is like the 48th hour. So He's like, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. So then he pulls up a chair and he's trying to touch me and all of these things. And of course, in the back of his head, he's like jumping out of his skin, not knowing what to think. It's his first experience. And he's always telling me, like, in Nigeria, the men don't go in the room with when women have babies. So he already didn't expect to be there. I'm thinking he's gonna pass out any minute, which he didn't, thank God. So I told them I'm ready to go. As soon as it comes out of my mouth, I hear code something, and people are running everywhere. The lady in the room right next to me has a medical emergency, and
Mm,
they have to wheel her to OR. So
mm.
I can't go.
Oh, wow.
And it takes a long time. It's another
Oh,
2 hours.
God.
So maybe this is maybe at like the 50-hour mark and not the 48-hour mark. So it's another 2 hours. And of course, I'm not in pain at this point. I can't feel anything because I've had the epidural, but I am tired. And they finally come in 2 hours later and they say, okay, the OR is about to be free. The doctor's coming to get you. We're going to go ahead and have this baby. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And so in another hour, they come in to get me. And my husband's like, I just think they should check you just one more time. Just one more
Mm.
time before you go out. The nurse was like, okay, it's not going to hurt anything. And so they lift my legs up, and my doula's like, he's got a head full of hair. And they literally have time to pick up the phone and say, she's not going to make it. Baby's crowning now. And the one resident or whoever puts on her stuff, and literally the baby just falls out.
Oh my goodness. Oh my. This
The
is
little baby that you
the
just saw
roller
this morning.
coaster. Like I'm dizzy from all of this. I can't imagine how you were.
A journey indeed. So that little boy that you just saw that morning, that is who we
Oh,
call our
sweetest
miracle baby.
little
I call him my
boy.
six-figure baby too. I always tell him like we spent a lot of money trying to have you, boy. But he's here and he's healthy and I couldn't be happier. I do mess with my husband and say, that's your baby. I did all that stuff, that's your baby.
Oh,
And of course he is in love with him, right?
oh,
It's the
and
apple of
he's the
his eye.
sweetest baby. He's
Yeah.
so
He is
beautiful.
so, so, so
He's
sweet.
so
But it's
beautiful.
the experience, I didn't know that secondary infertility
Mm.
was as prevalent as it is.
Yes.
The amount of Black women at the clinic every time I went for my appointments. Now, mind you, my RE was Black, a Black female, so that had something to do with it too.
Mm.
But the sheer number of us that are experiencing infertility and secondary infertility is just, the numbers are astronomical. And the number of people that are using egg donors to have babies
Mm.
in Nigeria, you would not even understand.
Believe it. I mean, I have such a huge interest in that now because, you know,
It is not talked about
it
at
is at
all.
all, at
But this
all.
one clinic that we went to, and there's several clinics there, constantly are recruiting for donors. Like
Wow.
I said, they do retrievals from young women. They only take 21 to 25. Um, they do retrievals like every day or every other day. They have a roster of numerous surrogates. And their surrogates, they only take surrogates that have had a baby before themselves, right? So they know that they can carry and deliver.
Got
And
it.
so they have surrogates that are doing it 2 and 3 and 4 times, right? Um, and so I do have some, that gives me pause, right? Are we?
Reservations. Yeah, because it feels so commercial. It doesn't
It's
feel,
very so, and that's what I
sacred
was
and
wrestling with
special.
in the clinic. That
Yeah.
it's commercial. Are we? What is the word I'm looking for when you take it? Are we taking advantage
Yeah.
of people that are not in the best financial situation? And people are coming from
And you
abroad.
can only imagine how much they give them for them to want to do it over and
Right, and
over
I don't
again.
know that,
Obviously
right? And I
not.
don't,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know
Yeah.
that, but it's very commercialized. I don't think it was a mistake that that clinic put 3 embryos. I don't follow them now, but I was following them on Instagram. I told my husband, I said, this is why they have the high incident of multiples. I said,
Yeah.
because I've never seen any other agency have this many. Every day they are posting twins or triplets that are born. every
It's,
week, I should say,
it's their
maybe.
procedure. It's what they do because
Right.
it
And what
increases their
Nigerian doesn't want
chances.
twins, right? What
Yeah.
Nigerian doesn't want twins, right?
Yeah.
So if you are someone that's already struggling with fertility and you're following them and they're having that's all they post, they rarely post a single. They're
Yeah.
posting twins and triplets all the time. Of course, that's where you're going to go.
That's
They're
right.
at the point now, what she told me, it is such a booming business now. They make a trip. They come and get sperm now instead of like having to go like my husband does. So on there, they'll
Oh,
say,
so
we're
they
coming
can't,
to,
you don't even have to travel for it
no,
anymore.
they go to Germany, they go to
Wow.
UK, they go to the US. They have several places around the country that they will go to pick up the semen. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's
It's
a
a
booming
booming
business.
business, but tell me, Quisha, so what would you want women walking a similar path? What would you want them to hear, especially those suffering quietly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One, you cannot suffer quietly. I think the people that
Mm.
suffer quietly are the ones that are um that have the most internal turmoil. I'm not saying tell your family and friends, only you know your family. I have friends that were supportive. I have family that was supportive. They knew they were there the whole step of the way, but that's also my personality, right?
Yeah.
My husband had friends that knew,
Mm.
and later family that knew, and he's a little untraditional as well,
Mm.
but he always said, I don't care what you talk about as long as you talk about things that are in the past. Like
Mm.
when we were going through surrogacy, I couldn't tell people about the surrogacy, but I could tell them about the IVF, right? I
Yeah.
can tell people about the surrogacy now because we're out of that. So that was his only thing.
Yeah.
I would say from the women that I engage with in the Facebook groups and personally, the ones that struggled the most emotionally and mentally are the ones that were isolated, that were in it by
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So if you don't have friends or family, someone, or even, people in groups that you can confide in, get a therapist. And I recommend getting a therapist anyway.
That's right.
I also like to tell women, be prepared that you might be in it for the long haul. If
Mm.
you are lucky enough and blessed enough to be one of those women that get pregnant the first go around, kudos to you. But very few of us do get pregnant the first go around.
Mm.
I
Mm.
like to tell women that you can do everything by the book, everything perfectly. That does not influence your outcome of whether or not you're going to be successful in getting pregnant or not. And so if you are a high achieving, woman that is used to succeeding in everything that you do, it doesn't carry over to this.
Yeah.
So that's
You have
something
to
that
be
you have to be
prepared that it's
mentally
not going to
prepared.
be exactly.
You
Yeah.
cannot control this. If you are a person that likes to know everything in advance and control the outcome, this is the ultimate let go and let God that I've ever experienced.
Wow. That was so beautiful. I
Yeah.
mean, this is, I don't think I'm gonna hear a story this moving,
Yeah.
this emotional. I mean, I've got goose pimples, I've got tears in my eyes. It's just
Yeah.
so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
You
You're
know, my
welcome.
hope is that it's gonna speak to a lot of people because it definitely spoke to me. This is just
Yeah.
beautiful. And congratulations again on your beautiful baby
Thank
boy.
you.
It's
Thank
just
you.
amazing, you know? All of that
Amazing.
is behind you now. You've got your beautiful son, from you and your husband, without all of
Yes.
that. It's just amazing.
And
Amazing.
can I just say this one thing too before we end? For those women that are out there that did have to do the egg donor route, please don't let what I'm saying and my hesitation for it make you feel different.
Mm.
If you are looking at your beautiful baby and it does not share the same DNA with you, you are not less than a mother. That is the route that you've had to take to get your child. And so
Yeah.
I don't want it to I don't want to be demeaning or make it be derogatory. I know some of the same feelings that I'm sharing that you probably felt the same way. They probably felt the same way. And if that is how somebody told me, I can't remember who it was, and it really helped me. They said, Quisha, stop thinking of it as trying to have a baby and start looking at it as how you're making your family. and how you're building your family. And there are lots of different ways that you can make or build a family that don't include you having a baby.
Oh, that's beautiful and so well said. And I think that it's a knowledge that is slowly but surely becoming common because first of all, people are more open to adoption than they used to be.
And
And
I think God put us through this for a reason. I think we are going to help other couples go
yeah,
through these situations. And we got to make it less taboo and
yeah,
talk about it. So I post about it, I share about it, like all his friends, family, everybody that knows him in Nigeria, they know our journey. It is not something that
yeah,
I'm quiet about because I think it is just real life and people need to know it's some people's journeys and it's
yeah.
not anything to look down on. It's just their journey was different than yours.
That's
Yeah.
just life. Thanks for joining me. I've learned so much. I'm
You're very
taking away
welcome.
so much. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.